Always a pleasure to be joined by Reid Johnson. He is the host of America's premier CFL podcast. Loves to talk what he calls alternative leagues. What's going on, Reid? Looks like a beautiful day in the Pacific Northwest.
Rod, time is a flat circle here. We are talking mergers again, and when the Rocks, United Super Football League takes over North America, remember the CFL, you had your chance. We're moving on.
Oh, you woke up today choosing violence. Is that where we're going? So I'll say, hey, by the way, because you do host these XFL, CFL podcasts, dabbling in the USFL, you're not anti-NFL, though, are you? You're a Commanders fan.
I'm a left hand up, 2-0 here right now. We're going to go and beat Buffalo at home. Can't wait. All right, Buffalo's going to come in. We're going to win. Can't wait.
Okay, gotcha. So, you know why we had you on. The stories came out this week that the XFL and the USFL are going to merge, that we're days away from an announcement. They're further down the line. They're not just talking about talking, as people say. Your thoughts on this development?
Really kind of came out of nowhere, and that was the weird thing. And if you look at kind of the wording of it, when the CFL, when all of that started, it was, we're talking about growing the game together. And everybody went crazy, and they're merging, or they're joining forces. The report from Axios came out Tuesday. I was day 3 of filming this conference, driving in, I get a text. It says, XFL and USFL to merge. They've been meeting, the report's out. From Mike Mitchell, one of our XFL insiders, is these meetings have been going on since July. Very few people within both the XFL and the USFL kind of know what's going on. It seems like it's a kind of the select few up in the ivory tower. I mean, I know we have staff, player personnel, social media people watching our shows, talking to us, trying to figure out what's going on, because information is not widely available right now, even if you're within either of these two leagues.
Sure, but what does it mean?
It does. Well, it doesn't scream to me of outstanding success from either the USFL or the XFL last year. We know that the USFL publicly was on the record. Gerald Johnston saying they were disappointed in the growth that they had from year 1 to year 2, both in TV ratings and with attendance, and the markets moving into more hubs. Because remember, they play in select cities and they kind of have multiple teams in each of those hubs. XFL, there was a report out from Forbes. They lost $60 million, which has been refuted. If that's higher or lower than it should have been, obviously they're starting from scratch, where Fox has a lot of that. So it doesn't scream to me that either one was super joyous about how season 1 or 2 for the USFL ended up. And they said, hey, maybe we shouldn't be fighting with each other here. Like maybe this is too niche for kind of both of us to do this on our own.
Fair. Well, I follow all the coverage. I have not chimed in. I'm talking about social media here. But I love the people that say, can we now say 3 times failed XFL? Because I think you reported the name will change. So where are you on that? And is Arash doing a victory lap somewhere as we speak?
Yeah, if Arash learned how to tie his shoes at the state of the CFL press conference with Randy Ambrosie, maybe that would be a fresh start with that. No, I mean, it's weird to me that both of these leagues, Danny and the Rock spent the money to bring the XFL out of bankruptcy, bought off the debt. USFL, obviously, and we covered ad nauseum was it 2 summers ago, kind of going through all their trademark debacles and acquiring the trademark and getting sued from the old USFL. And we had Jim Earhart on our show, kind of the previous, he was, I guess, the president of that league back in the 80s when it folded. So it's weird to me that you would spend, the better part of 2-3 years acquiring, doing all this on either side and then saying, yeah, we're just going to move on from that. I'm glad that we are not a brand-centric podcast title. I'm glad we have moved on from that. But I know that there's a lot of XFL, USFL-based, whatever, websites, media that could be a little panicky right now.
Well, it's interesting. You say the CFL, you had your chance. I'm in your camp. I was in favor of a merger and got soundly trounced so badly, I moved to South Florida. So, yeah, I don't think the CFL wants to merge. So why they ever even brought it up, I've said this, is it was to distract us from the fact they were canceling their season. And it worked.
100%.
Because the question, the elephant in the room is, why does spring football in America struggle? That's the question.
And I think they're hopefully trying to figure it out. I think they learned this year XFL airing February through April, and then the USFL, they had overlap April through July. A lot of football fatigue, both here in our household with my wife, and then I think just across America. I think that's a lot to ask of like, okay, you just got done with the Super Bowl. We're launching the next week. The teams aren't quite as good. You don't quite know the players. I mean, obviously, we're supporting all of these guys getting jobs and getting roles and all of this stuff, but it's a lot to ask. And then by the time you kind of get through the USFL season to July, you go, I'm really kind of done. I mean, we podcast every week covering all the games. We've had Andy on and Pat, and now we do our CFL coverage. I mean, I've been doing weekly recaps for alternate, including CFL on that since February. I mean, it's a lot. So I think, like I said, they figured maybe we can, as opposed to pointing the guns at each other, maybe we can, unify here that if we are truly in this, for the love of football, getting players opportunities, maybe we should do better by positioning ourselves in a way that's going to increase our viewership for the players as well.
It's interesting. Evan's watching in Brandon. He says, I got so much heat for being on the side of the CFL merger. He says, football fatigue is quitter talk. LOL. Nelson, our VP of Sim Events, says people need a break, and the CFL is the sweet spot to get people back into football watching shape. Maybe, Reid. But, I mean, I'm sitting here 40 miles north of Miami. There was a high school game last night on ESPN2. I don't know if you noticed. Miami Central versus Chaminade Madonna. It was on ESPN2. All the major college coaches were there. Like, there's 20,000 people showing up for a 9 and under football game in Lake Worth. You can see why people would think they can't get enough of it. What's football fatigue? I've never heard of it.
To me, when the USFL came out last year and said they were disappointed with their growth from year 1 to year 2, I could very much tell them why that was that way. I don't know. I think that people come into this space and they think that maybe they know more, or, well, this has failed before and we're going to do something different and we're not going to make the same mistakes. But, we've been covering this for 4 years now. Like, I can tell you what's going to work. I can tell you what's not. I can tell you why people were disappointed by season 2 of the USFL and season 1 of the XFL.
Yeah, for sure. One thing, though, on the merger, so we feel that it's happening, but what I've also read is that not every team's going to survive. Do you know much about this?
Yeah, so they're reporting out, and again, this is via Mike Mitchell, kind of our insider, is it kind of, if you have stadiums in place, right, USFL, they had 4 hubs last year. They were in Canton, Ohio. They were in Detroit. They were in Memphis, and they were in Birmingham, Alabama. Those teams feel safe. They need to get a team in Canton. They're kind of playing a mishmash of teams there. And then the XFL teams, Vegas Vipers is already been chronicled online. Obviously, it was not a successful situation at Cashman Field, the former high school or whatever soccer stadium there. So they were already on the way out. It was officially already announced via XFL that they were moving to a new venue, wherever that was going to be. Sounds like the Vipers are out. Sounds like the Roughnecks based out of Texas are out because USFL already has a Houston Gamblers team. Even though it's never played in Houston, the idea would be that they would play at Rice Field there and take the place of that. Because in my opinion, you can't have 7 XFL teams and 1 USFL team. I think you need to have a little bit more of a collaboration here. Mike's pointing 10 teams total, I think, is the number we've been hearing, but that changes every day. But currently the understanding is 10 to 12 teams, which obviously is leaving a lot of fan bases upset.
And the league will be called what?
The joke that we've had was the National Spring Football League. That was the holding company that the Fox had last year when they were acquiring all the USFL trademarks. I think that's kind of jokey. I don't think the National Football League would allow a National Spring Football League, if you know anything about the Shield. But we don't know. I mean, we've always just joked to call it like the USXFL or whatever. But I don't know. Start trademarking your 3-letter websites and domains and stuff. I don't know, but I do not think it's the National Spring Football League, but that has been circulated.
Well, this is great. Evan in Brandon writes that he says nothing but love for Reid. He's the GOAT for XFL, USFL coverage. James in Borden, Manitoba says, I wish the CFL would hire someone like Reid to help expand in the U.S. They don't want to expand into the United States. That's the point. That's the whole point. Yes?
Rod, at least you got a backpack and a hat. I saw your wonderful media package that you got sent. I've had Ambrose. He's been on the show 3 times, called himself a friend of the show. I can't even get a follow back from the CFL. That's how little they interact with me on Twitter. Weekly recaps here and 15,000 views for our Grey Cup show last year. Beat the league's Grey Cup show, but that's fine. We're good on our own.
But you had to point that out. Reid, you are an absolute gem. I appreciate you. Give my best to your wonderful wife and enjoy the ball this weekend.
Rod, I still have a Jordan Eberle Kraken bobblehead for you whenever I see you in person next. I have it reserved. We've talked about this before, but next time, I don't know if you're going to be in Hamilton. We'll be there, but next time I see you in person, I have that to hand because I want to give it to you face to face.
Thank you so much, man. I appreciate that. We'll talk. Okay, Reid. Appreciate you, bro. Reid Johnson from Seattle from the MarkCast.